Patterns of grief are often predictable and can be understood. I will explain how I use my yo-yo grief cycle right after this. The imagery of the action of a yo-yo can help us understand the steps of grief that were made famous by Kubler-Ross. I've made one modification to the cycle, which I will explain. Now, imagine the many different phases of a yo-yo as it travels up and down. I developed this visual of combining the grief cycle with my yo-yo model to help others understand why they sometimes feel like these painful memories continue to surface and resurface in their lives. Successfully completing the grief cycle requires specific steps. Just as a yo-yo moves up and down, again in predictable cycles, the grief cycle generally follows a predictable pattern too. Now, not always, sometimes they're out of order, but in general you'll see these similar patterns Kubler-Ross made famous. Now let's walk through the grief cycle stage by stage. Stage A is the shock that occurs when a challenge first presents itself. If someone hands you a yo-yo and says, "Do some tricks," you might freeze. Now it takes time for you to comprehend what is happening when a major trial enters your life. Now stage B here is that denial or confusion or fear that occurs during that challenge. When you begin using a yo-yo, you attach it to your finger and you let the yo-yo drop. And I have a yo-yo here. This free-falling motion represents the confusion and fear that many feel during a major trial. Now stage C is the bargaining phase of your challenge, or when you reach out to others asking for help. Now stage D is the anger or anxiety and blame that you place on those that gave you this challenge in the first place. At this point, your yo-yo has reached the end of its rope, and it's spinning with uncontrolled energy. Now in stage E, it is the despair or the depression that occurs when you have no energy. You feel hopeless, and you believe that you're not capable of fixing this problem. Now here, the yo-yo is stuck at the bottom of the cycle. It's motionless, it's unable to function. Now this is a weakened state, and it's the state right before you have to decide to put in some positive energy to change towards recovery. Now stage F is the acceptance, such as when you begin to overcome the challenge by moving forward. Now here, the yo-yo begins working and starts being pulled up back again. Now stage G is the final stage. It's the phase or stage that I've added to Kubler-Ross's grief cycle. I call it the empowerment stage. This is where you find security, meaning, growth, and as you successfully endure both that initial shock and this tap towards growth, you overcome the depression and you become empowered. You are also empowered with new skills to survive future trials for a lifetime of growth. Now, tapping your yo-yo grief cycle is simply understanding that after major trials, you will experience A, shock or disbelief, B, denial or confusion or fear, C, some bargaining or reaching out to others, D, some anxiety or blame, E, some depression or despair, F, some acceptance to begin moving forward, and G, the empowerment to endure this cycle again. Now these are normal reactions to abnormal events, and why I like the concept of a yo-yo is because sometimes you're dealing with multiple traumatic events and trials at the same time, and it feels like you're using multiple yo-yos at the same time. With practice, you can become skilled with performing technical tricks as you manipulate the yo-yo. Your success in playing with the yo-yo requires energy as you move the toy repeatedly up and down. The key to understanding the grief cycle is to know that, much like the yo-yo going up and down, this cycle will be repeated multiple times in life. Recognizing the stages of the cycle will better prepare you for the cycles to come. Just know that grief after a trial or trauma is typical. However, you should not compare your experience and your reactions to others. When you or anyone you know experiences a large trauma or trial in life, the therapist will usually explain the stages of grief. When you're in the middle of the cycle, these different stages are often confusing or easily forgotten. I found that using the imagery of playing with the yo-yo is a simple way to explain the cycle. Now I emphasize that after you pass through the despair stage, you will reach a stage of empowerment which enables you to use these newfound life skills. If you like what you've heard so far, please hit the like button. If you want to see more future videos, subscribe. If you know someone that is struggling with grief, share this video with them. Now, please comment below. How have you survived the grief cycle and moved towards the empowerment stage? I'm a trial tapper. I tap pain, I find a path, and I grow stronger. Are you ready to move away from pain and towards a brighter future? See you next time.